Hello, my name is Ben. I'm presenting a review today on the new division of labor, how computers are creating the next job market. To begin with a couple notes about the author, Frank Levy, works at the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning. He's written books and papers on a variety of different topics, education, income inequality, and technology. Richard Murnane is a professor at Harvard. His work focuses primarily on the economics of education, things like teacher markets and ways education environments affect economics. They've also authored one other book together, which is Teaching the New Basic Skills. The one thing I didn't notice until I researched the authors a little bit is that their background is really heavy in education, and yet I consider this to be a technology book. And so the book brings the two concepts together really heavy and how they relate through the job market. That new technology requires new skills, which requires new education, new ways of teaching. And I think that book really brings different subjects there together to do that. The four questions the book is hoping to address: what kind of tasks do humans do better than computers? The inverse question: what do computers do better than humans? And in a increasing computerized world, what work is left for people to do, and how can people learn the skills that they need to accomplish this work? The first question: what are computers good at? This is something we've talked about a little in class, so I'll just kind of cover it quick. It's rules-based information processing. There's a couple examples up there. What it really is things that can be expressed step by step. Do this, do that, you'll get your outcome. And that rule-based information processing is the only thing computers really excel at right now. Some limitations on this, though: it doesn't let them process new types of information or develop new processes. Anytime there's changes in the environment, changes to what needs to be done, the rules have to be rewritten, the systems need to be redeveloped. And that really limits what rules can do and how they can adapt to new environment. There's always the need for interaction to adjust those and tweak them. They can't correct themselves. Another thing the rules are limited by is something the authors call intuitive knowledge. And it's just knowledge which is difficult for us to express, difficult for us to write down. And the example they give is great. It's a 4-year-old walking across a crowded room to pick an apple from a bowl of fruit. You say walk across a room, what's that mean? How do you express in rules? You want to avoid people, well, how do you avoid people? How do you express that? How do you avoid running into things? What's a bowl look like? Can you cover every variation on a bowl in a couple simple rules? And even distinguishing apple. These are all things that have to be expressed very specifically for a computer to be able to do it. And yet a 4-year-old can do it very easily. And that's really the distinction between what humans can do and what computers can do. Computers are limited by tasks that are trivial to humans. It kind of leads in the next section: what are humans good at? And that's pattern-based information processing. It's the ability to recognize two things that aren't identical and kind of adapt past experience to new and current problems. That's actually a type of reasoning called case-based reasoning, where you match your previous experiences to what's going on right now and you make decisions based on that. Some of the things that limit computers' ability to use patterns is the limited perception. A person is able to take in massive amounts of information all at once and process it. We have different senses. We're seeing and hearing what's going on, but we're also able to focus on different objects, and we're able to extrapolate the data we need very quickly. For a computer to take vision and seeing and be able to distinguish individual objects, by the time it's figured out what everything is, there's already something else going on. The computers aren't fast enough, aren't skilled enough at doing that. It also requires massive amounts of information. A person has a lifetime of experiences that they're matching their patterns against. They have a lifetime of schooling and education that they're bringing in as their past experience when they're matching that. Some of those are easy to express and put into rules, and you can tell a computer, but a lot of them are that intuitive knowledge that you can't bring into a computer. You can't teach a computer. You can't express those experiences in a way that a computer can use it productively, at least not yet. So how are computers affecting work and changing the nature of work? Some jobs they flat out destroy. Things like mortgage underwriters have been expressed in rules, have been replaced by computers. They've largely created massive job destruction in certain areas. And middle managers is one. Their biggest role often is to communicate ideas from higher managers to lower level employees. And as computers have kind of facilitated communication, they've kind of narrowed that and eliminated some of the need for middle managers. At the same time, they've created jobs for things like technicians and systems engineers and new things and new ideas that are needed by computers. And other jobs, and this is really one of the things that was pointed out well in the book, is it complements jobs. Things like an engineer hasn't been replaced by a computer because a computer cannot adapt engineering concepts to new environments. Instead, the computer is able to help the engineer. It's able to do the rule-based part, the modeling. Once an engineer has a design, he puts it into the computer runs the math, it does the rule-based thinking. He just simply has to put in the new information and match it. He needs to understand all the processes the computer is doing, but it's able to help his job. And in the same way, doctors, especially in the area of digital imaging, the computer can help do a lot of the work and a lot of the analysis, but when it comes right down to it, the human's ability to look at that and pick out the relative information is still needed. What skills do people need then to be successful? The first one they stress is expert thinking. And the way they define expert thinking, they do it through a good example, is an auto worker who can diagnose a car by driving that car. He uses a variety of mechanisms. Fine distinctions is the difference between what a mechanic sees when he drives the car and what the customer sees when he drives the car. The mechanic is able to feel what he's driving and know what's going on in the engine and hear what he needs to hear. A customer just knows if it sounds right or wrong. He's not able to make the distinctions between everything that's going on because he doesn't understand the process. And that understanding of the process is known as schema. It's a view of the whole problem as a whole and how the components work together and just an understanding of the process that's going on. And the last thing that humans really need to be able to do with their processes is metacognition, which is evaluating a process as you're going. If you're trying a problem-solving technique and it's not working, you need to have the ability to switch techniques, to try something different and to think outside of that, and that's important. Another skill people need is complex communication, and that's the ability to convey ideas to each other. This is made up of 3 parts. Shared understanding. People have to be on the same page when they're communicating. If 2 people aren't talking about the same thing and they don't realize it, the communication's not going to go right, and it's important that people are able to effectively communicate in the job market. Mutual trust is needed for all kinds of jobs. Salespeople and financial advisors are 2 that are really brought out in the book. If people feel they can trust them, then they're going to give them their money, they're going to buy their products. But if people feel like they can't trust them, that they're trying to con them, then it's not going to be effective and it's not going to work. Shared goals is required for complex communication because it brings people to work towards the same things. If employees and managers are working towards different goals, nothing's going to get accomplished, and that's why that's an important job skills. They also talk about teaching critical skills. This is where some of the education background comes into the book. They ask the question, can we even teach these skills? They're kind of abstract and complex, and they do believe we can. They outline 4 steps to how we can plan education curriculum so that it will get these skills to the people who need them. And they also believe that standard-based testing should be used. They believe it's an objective way to evaluate education programs and how good they are at performing their tasks. The final section they make is about predictions for the future. They believe that outsourcing and computerization will continue, that the demand for highly skilled workers will continue to rise, and this shift may cause political tension as low-skilled workers get replaced by high-skilled workers. And they believe that even though that's the case, it's important that there's income redistribution and welfare so that the low-skilled workers can have time and the ability to learn the skills they need for retraining and flexibility. I would strongly recommend this book to anyone who's entering the job market. I know it's helpful for me as someone graduating from college to say these are the skills, at least in general, that I'm going to need entering into the workforce. It does cover a very narrow range of topics in depth. It's a pretty short book. One other reviewer says, ironically, this book could be even shorter than its 157 pages. I kind of disagree with that evaluation. It covers the topics very in depth, and it kind of is able to cover every aspect of them and bring a full understanding about it. So even though it's kind of long at points in certain ideas, it brings them out fully. They use a lot of examples to get that across, and they also manage to use simple terminology. They don't rely on a lot of jargon. They define any terms they use very well and make sure you have an understanding. Overall, I'd give it a 5-star review.